The millionaire arrived home earlier than expected, and what he saw revealed the unthinkable. Money can buy a mansion, trust, and comfort. But what happens when one unexpected moment shows the truth that no amount of wealth can hide? He usually followed a rigid schedule, waking before the sun and closing deals long after most people had left their offices. But that morning, a meeting unexpectedly canceled, leaving him with time he rarely allowed himself. The millionaire glanced at his watch and thought, why not head home a little earlier today? The thought seemed simple, almost trivial, yet little did he know it would unravel a string of events that no wealth could anticipate. As he drove through familiar streets, his mind wandered over business deals and obligations, yet a sense of something unusual tickled at the back of his mind. There was an odd excitement in breaking the routine, a tiny rebellion against his own regimented life. Even his thoughts about his wife and family seemed sharper today, tinged with curiosity. Something about the anticipation made his chest tighten, a mix of eagerness and silent unease. Arriving at the driveway, the mansion loomed larger than usual, and the usual comfort felt strangely distant, as if it were hiding secrets of its own. The moment he stepped out of his car, he noticed how the familiar sounds of the neighborhood seemed muted, almost waiting. The wind carried a chill, brushing against the polished windows of his mansion, reminding him that even wealth could not shield one from the unexpected. His footsteps echoed along the driveway, a rhythm that seemed to sync with the rising heartbeat in his chest. He looked at the front door, grand and imposing, yet somehow more intimidating than ever. Thoughts of betrayal and deception he had read about in business scandals crossed his mind, though he pushed them aside. The sense of surprise he felt wasn't linked to money or success, but to the quiet anticipation of discovery. What if someone was there? What if the truth he had been avoiding was about to find him? A hidden part of him whispered that this was not merely a return home. It was stepping into something that would challenge every assumption he had about his family, his wife, and even himself. The door key felt heavier than usual in his hand, almost as if it were warning him. As he opened the door, the familiar scent of his home hit him, but it was slightly off, like a room he knew intimately wearing a stranger's face. The millionaire's eyes swept across the entrance hall, noticing small details that were out of place. A misplaced book, a chair slightly shifted. Each small anomaly felt like a hint of hidden emotions, a prelude to something he couldn't yet name. He remembered that wealth could build mansions, but it couldn't dictate the loyalty of those inside. His mind flicked to stories of betrayal, from business partners to friends who vanished when circumstances changed. How fragile trust could be, even when wrapped in comfort and luxury. The heart, he realized, was far more unpredictable than contracts or assets. He took a deep breath, grounding himself in logic, yet the nervous excitement wouldn't dissipate. That early return, innocent as it seemed, was already stirring emotions he hadn't encountered in years. He moved further into the mansion, each step measured, aware of the polished floor beneath his shoes. The quiet seemed to deepen, amplifying every small sound, from the tick of a clock to the faint hum of the refrigerator. It was as if the house itself held its breath, waiting for him to uncover the hidden truth. He recalled nights spent working tirelessly, sacrificing family dinners, missing birthdays, all for the pursuit of more wealth, more deals, more recognition. And now, with one simple change in routine, he felt the fragility of it all pressing against him. He thought of his wife, his family, wondering what they might be hiding, what truths had gone unspoken in the corners of the mansion. Even the luxurious walls felt suddenly like barriers rather than comfort. This early return was no longer about freeing a few extra hours. It was about confronting something he had long avoided. Something unexpected awaited him, lingering behind the familiar. As he ascended the staircase, the millionaire's mind raced with fleeting images. Laughter that didn't reach his ears, whispered secrets, moments of deception he hadn't considered. The polished banister gleamed under the sunlight, yet it no longer felt like a symbol of prosperity. It was a reminder of moments missed, trust not nurtured. Each step brought a mixture of fear and curiosity, emotions he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. The mansion, full of hidden rooms and subtle signs of life, seemed almost alive, holding memories of love and betrayal alike. He considered the power of wealth, how it built comfort but not clarity. Sometimes, the most valuable discoveries are the ones you stumble upon by accident. And this early return, trivial to an outsider, was about to become an invaluable lesson in observation, awareness, and the hidden realities of human relationships. He paused briefly, listening, noticing how even the slightest sounds carried significance. He realized that the mansion was more than walls. It was a repository of hidden truths. Reaching the landing, he paused to observe the familiar corridor stretching before him. Shadows shifted in unusual patterns, subtle hints that something was different today. The millionaire's intuition, honed over years of high-stakes decision-making, whispered that the house was holding a secret. It wasn't about finances or business anymore. It was about the relationships that truly mattered. Every room held a story, every object a silent witness to moments of trust, deception, and love. His gaze lingered on the portraits lining the walls, reminders of family, loyalty, and bonds tested by time. He recalled advice from mentors about paying attention to small details, because often, life's most critical lessons appear in the overlooked corners. He felt a mix of excitement and dread, emotions he hadn't felt in decades. This simple decision to come home early had set in motion a journey of discovery, one that would challenge assumptions about truth, betrayal, and the very meaning of success. At the threshold of the next room, a sudden movement caught his eye, something hidden behind a half-open door. His pulse quickened, a subtle surprise that reminded him life could still provoke genuine emotion. Even in a mansion filled with objects of value, it was these small, human moments that carried weight. He reminded himself that money and power are no shield against unexpected truths. The air felt denser, charged with anticipation. He thought of past lessons, books he had read about human psychology, and real examples where early observations revealed hidden betrayal or profound truth. It was as if the house itself was guiding him toward a revelation, one he couldn't ignore. He stepped closer, every sense heightened, ready to face whatever awaited behind that door. Each heartbeat echoed lessons in trust, family, and the hidden surprises of life. Crossing the room, he noticed subtle signs of life that didn't belong to him. A misplaced jacket, a faint scent, a glass half full on a table. Each small detail whispered secrets he hadn't known existed. The millionaire's mind raced with possible explanations. Family members, employees, friends, anyone could be responsible. He understood how wealth can shield from many problems, but not from human emotions, betrayals, or unexpected discoveries. He remembered stories of others who learned harsh truths too late, realizing that the unthinkable often hides in the mundane. There was a lesson here about observation, attentiveness, and the courage to confront what is hidden. He felt a mix of fear, curiosity, and even excitement, emotions long suppressed by routine and business obligations. The early return was proving to be far more revealing than any meeting or deal he had ever attended. Finally, he paused at the center of the mansion, feeling the weight of the moment settle over him. The quiet, the subtle movements, the hidden hints, they all converged into a sense of anticipation that was almost tangible. His reflection on family, trust, and deception intertwined with the physical space of the house, showing him how closely life and environment are linked. He realized that even with all his success, the most significant discoveries often come unannounced, in moments you least expect. The mansion, his wealth, his life, they were all backdrops to something far more personal, intimate, and revealing. He took a deep breath, preparing for the next step, knowing that this early return had already shifted the course of his evening, his understanding of relationships, and his awareness of hidden truths. The stage was set for what was about to unfold, and there was no turning back. The millionaire stepped fully into his mansion, and an unfamiliar quiet wrapped around him like a heavy curtain. Usually, the house hummed with distant sounds of daily life, reminders of family and staff moving about. Today, it felt almost empty, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. He paused, noticing how every polished surface reflected not just light, but an unusual tension. The subtle echoes of his footsteps seemed louder than usual, bouncing back questions he wasn't ready to answer. Even the grand chandelier above seemed to cast shadows differently, hinting at something hidden. His instincts, sharpened by years of business and negotiation, whispered that this silence carried meaning. Every room felt charged with expectation, like the house knew it had secrets to reveal. He couldn't shake the feeling that what awaited him wasn't just unexpected. It was personal, and it would matter deeply. As he moved through the entrance hall, he noticed the air carried a faint, unfamiliar scent, one that contrasted with the usual comforting aromas of the mansion. It reminded him how subtle details often reveal more than appearances can, a lesson he had learned investing in businesses and relationships alike. The faintest hint of perfume, the slightest shift of furniture, all contributed to a growing sense that the house itself was trying to tell him something. He paused at the bottom of the staircase, reflecting on how wealth could buy luxury, but not clarity or peace of mind. Even the windows, which usually framed a serene view, seemed to obscure more than they revealed. He thought about the layers of trust and deception that often coexist behind closed doors, and how one misstep or overlooked sign could lead to surprise. The silence was no longer passive, it felt deliberate, and he knew he had to pay attention, because sometimes the smallest signals carry the greatest truth. Walking further, he realized how often he had ignored subtle cues, both in business and in family life. Decisions were made, opportunities missed, and emotions left unexamined because the focus was always on results. The mansion, with all its luxury, suddenly seemed like a mirror reflecting not accomplishments, but omissions. He ran a hand along the polished banister, noting the perfection of the craftsmanship, but sensing a lack of warmth that usually accompanies a home filled with love. It struck him that even the richest man can feel alone when trust and clarity are missing. Every creak of the floor, every whisper of air through the vents, added to a rising tension that was almost palpable. The silence was not empty. It was loaded with hidden truths, waiting for him to notice. He realized that the mansion, despite its grandeur, was teaching a lesson about presence, attention, and the unseen layers of life. And this realization made him more alert, more prepared, yet more apprehensive about what lay ahead. The echo of his footsteps carried memories of past gatherings, laughter, and discussions, moments that once filled these rooms with energy and trust. Now, each sound seemed amplified in the emptiness, a stark contrast to the life the mansion once represented. He thought about how relationships, like the architecture around him, require maintenance and care, otherwise they grow hollow. Every hallway seemed to hold a story, and the silence hinted that not all stories had happy endings. His mind flicked to his wife, his family, and trusted associates, wondering what secrets might be tucked away in the shadows of these walls. The mansion, which he had built to secure comfort and success, now highlighted the fragility of those achievements. He understood, in a visceral way, that wealth alone could not guard against hidden betrayal. The quiet demanded reflection, and he felt both curiosity and unease stirring within him. Each step deepened the suspense, reminding him that discovery often comes when least expected. He paused near the library, the familiar scent of polished wood and books normally a comfort, but today carrying an undertone of tension. The quiet amplified his awareness, making him notice details long overlooked. A slightly ajar drawer, a shifted chair, a faint mark on the rug. Each small anomaly felt like a breadcrumb, a silent message leading him toward hidden emotions and undiscovered truths. He recalled that in both life and business, subtle signs often foreshadow dramatic revelations. Trust, like the books lining these shelves, can be easily taken for granted, only to be revealed as fragile under scrutiny. The mansion's silence was teaching him attentiveness, patience, and the courage to face surprises without warning. His pulse quickened, aware that the ordinary act of returning home early had shifted into a journey of unexpected insight. The hidden layers of the house mirrored hidden layers in his life, challenging him to see beyond surface appearances. The dining room, usually bustling with conversation and warmth, felt like a scene paused in time. He noticed the chairs were perfectly aligned, the table immaculately set, but something intangible felt off. There was no warmth in the room, no echo of laughter or conversation. The millionaire realized how often appearances can be deceiving. Luxury can cover emptiness just as easily as it can reflect care. This silent room carried a subtle drama, hinting at hidden truths about relationships, trust, and unspoken emotions. Even small objects, like a misplaced napkin or a faint mark on the silverware, seemed to signal secrets he hadn't anticipated. He understood, in that quiet moment, that wealth could create comfort, but not clarity or honesty. Each carefully curated detail became a clue, urging him to continue exploring, to uncover what had remained hidden until now. Moving toward the upper floors, he noticed the ambient light shifting through tall windows, casting unfamiliar shadows. The mansion's silence grew heavier, almost demanding his full attention. He realized that in every relationship, there are hidden layers, much like the hidden corners of this house. Money could provide space, comfort, and possessions, but it could not protect him from the subtle currents of emotions swirling around him. Each step seemed to echo lessons he had learned through both personal and professional experiences, reminding him to look for what wasn't immediately visible. The faintest noise, a door creaking, a picture slightly askew, stirred curiosity, urging him to uncover hidden realities about his family, his wife, and the trust he had assumed was solid. He sensed that surprise, discovery, and revelation were just ahead. The mansion, silent as it was, seemed to guide him toward understanding what lay beneath the polished surfaces. In the corridor outside the bedrooms, he felt the weight of anticipation pressing in. The silence no longer seemed passive. It demanded attention, reflection, and courage. He remembered lessons from mentors, observing subtle changes, paying attention to hidden details, and valuing trust over convenience. Even the grandest mansions cannot hide emotions, deception, or betrayal when they are waiting to be discovered. Each door, each hallway, each silent space carried a potential revelation. The millionaire felt his emotions sharpen, curiosity mixing with apprehension. He understood that the quiet was not emptiness but a prelude to discovery, a build-up to an event that could redefine his understanding of family, love, and trust. And with every step, the mansion's secrets seemed just a breath away from being revealed. Finally, standing at the landing, he paused to absorb the silence fully. It was as if the mansion itself were holding its breath, watching him, preparing him for what was to come. He realized that wealth, luxury, and success cannot shield anyone from the unexpected truths that life can reveal. The stillness was not just physical. It was emotional, a reflection of hidden stories, secrets, and relationships yet to be understood. The millionaire felt a mixture of curiosity, anxiety, and awareness, knowing that the house would soon reveal more than material wealth could ever show. The mansion had become a teacher, showing him that hidden emotions, subtle betrayals, and quiet lessons often arrive when least expected. Each step forward promised insight, challenge, and the kind of discovery that transforms perspective. And as he prepared to enter the next room, he sensed that what awaited him was far from ordinary, hidden within the silence. As he moved cautiously down the hallway, the millionaire noticed a shadow flicker at the edge of his vision. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, a reflection off the polished floors, but his instincts immediately told him otherwise. There was a subtle movement, almost deliberate, like someone or something was trying to remain unseen. His heart quickened, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension fueling every step. The mansion, familiar in every corner, suddenly felt alive, aware of his presence and ready to reveal secrets long hidden. He recalled that in life, as in business, the smallest anomalies often lead to the biggest discoveries. A half-open door, a misplaced object, even a shadow can carry the weight of hidden truths waiting to surface. He knew that what lay ahead might challenge everything he believed about trust, love, and family. And yet, he couldn't turn back. The urge to uncover the hidden truth pressed him forward. The subtle signs kept him alert, making him notice details he would normally overlook. A rug slightly out of place, a picture crooked on the wall, a faint mark on the banister. All seemed to hint at something just beyond his understanding. He remembered reading about how the human brain is wired to pick up on anomalies, and how ignoring them can lead to missed lessons. In that moment, he realized the same principle applied to his personal life. Small deviations in behavior, small secrets, and overlooked moments often carry the deepest meaning. The mansion, in its quiet way, was teaching him attentiveness and awareness. Even wealth and power could not replace the clarity that comes from observing what is hidden. Each shadow, each sound, each fleeting impression became a clue. The tension built with every step, as anticipation and uncertainty intertwined. A gentle breeze from a slightly open window shifted the curtains, revealing movement that was not there moments before. He paused, recognizing the familiar patterns of his home and how different it felt under this subtle disturbance. Life, he realized, often hides its truths in plain sight, and only those willing to look closely can uncover them. Memories of past surprises, both joyful and painful, flickered in his mind, reinforcing that human emotions and hidden actions are rarely obvious until revealed. He recalled instances in business when a minor detail, an email, a tone of voice, a gesture, exposed an entire deception. Similarly, the mansion seemed to whisper lessons about vigilance and observation. His pulse quickened, blending fear with excitement. The shadow wasn't just a sign. It was an invitation to confront what had been obscured. He took a deep breath, preparing to move closer, knowing the discovery would carry weight far beyond the visual anomaly. As he approached the source of the shadow, his mind wandered to his family and the subtleties in relationships he had often ignored. A quiet glance, an unusual reaction, or a hidden worry. These small things often hold the key to understanding the bigger picture. The mansion, through its silence and shadows, was echoing the same lesson. Observation is everything. He realized that deception can hide behind love, and betrayal can exist where loyalty is assumed. Every instinct, every learned lesson from years of experience told him to pay attention. Even a millionaire, accustomed to controlling his environment and predicting outcomes, could be caught off guard by what is hidden. The tension was almost physical, coiling in his chest like a spring ready to release. He moved slowly, deliberately, allowing each step to heighten awareness. What he was about to uncover would shift perception, revealing truths masked by ordinary appearances. He noticed a slight shift in the carpet, as if someone had passed through recently, leaving an invisible trail. His mind analyzed possibilities, family members, staff, unexpected visitors, but nothing seemed to fit perfectly. That uncertainty added weight to every movement, making the experience both thrilling and unnerving. Life, he realized, often presents the unexpected in ordinary settings, demanding attention to details that are easy to overlook. The mansion, an emblem of his success, was now a classroom, teaching lessons about hidden dynamics and subtle betrayals. Each object, each minor disturbance, seemed to carry a story, a secret ready to unfold. He thought about the delicate balance between trust and suspicion, love and doubt, and how quickly one can shift into the other. Every step forward was a test of awareness, patience, and courage. The mansion's shadows were alive with lessons he could not ignore. Passing a doorway slightly ajar, he caught a flicker of movement that made his chest tighten. It was brief, almost imperceptible, yet enough to confirm that someone or something was present where it shouldn't be. He remembered that even in the most controlled environments, hidden truths often emerge through subtle signs. Like reading between the lines of a contract or noticing micro-expressions in a conversation, observing small anomalies in the home could reveal deep insights. The feeling was electrifying and disorienting. He understood that discovery often comes in moments that seem ordinary at first glance. The mansion, in its quiet majesty, was revealing hidden layers of life, relationships, and emotions. He felt the mix of fear and curiosity sharpen his senses, preparing him for the inevitable revelation. Every heartbeat echoed the importance of vigilance and awareness. The shadow moved again, disappearing almost instantly, leaving only a sense of presence behind. He paused, considering the weight of unseen forces in both his mansion and life itself. The millionaire reflected on how deception often hides in plain sight, masked by routine or comfort. Wealth and luxury provide many comforts, but they cannot shield one from the subtleties of betrayal or the surprise of hidden truths. His eyes scanned every corner, every surface, attuned to signs that previously would have gone unnoticed. Each small anomaly seemed purposeful, carrying lessons about trust, attention, and the delicate threads of relationships. He realized that discovery isn't always about dramatic revelations. Sometimes it's about noticing what others overlook. The mansion whispered its secrets, demanding careful observation. As he reached the end of the hallway, the shadow appeared again briefly, teasing and almost playful. It was a reminder that the path to understanding is rarely linear. Hidden truths often emerge in fragments, requiring patience and insight. He thought about experiences in business where tiny details revealed larger deceptions, reinforcing the importance of mindfulness. The mansion, rich with objects, history, and memories, now served as a metaphor for life itself. Wealth and comfort do not guarantee awareness or safety. The thrill of anticipation mingled with a sobering sense of responsibility, teaching him that curiosity must be tempered with care. Each passing moment deepened the suspense, preparing him for a revelation that would change his understanding of love, trust, and family. The hidden was everywhere, and he was learning to see it. Finally, he stopped at the threshold of a room where the shadow had vanished, leaving a sense of expectancy in the air. The millionaire knew that discovery often requires patience, attention, and courage, the very qualities he had honed in business and personal life. This glimpse of something hidden was not merely a physical anomaly. It was a lesson in vigilance, observation, and understanding human nature. Shadows, silence, and subtle signs all carry meaning if one is willing to look carefully. He realized that the mansion, despite its grandeur, had more to teach than any meeting or transaction ever could. Every detail, every nuance, hinted at truths about trust, deception, and emotions that he had long neglected. And with that realization, he stepped forward, ready to uncover the next layer of hidden reality, knowing the journey was only beginning. As he ascended the grand staircase, the millionaire's mind drifted to the countless sacrifices that had shaped his journey. Long nights spent in boardrooms, missed family dinners, and endless travel had built the empire surrounding him, yet often left his heart longing. He remembered the first time he chose a deal over attending a school recital, thinking it was the price of success. Each step seemed to echo with those choices, the cost of ambition etched into his memories. Life had taught him that every reward carries a shadow, a reminder of what was traded along the way. He reflected on friends who faded, relationships strained, and moments lost in pursuit of wealth. Even now, surrounded by luxury, he felt the hollow edges of isolation. The mansion, with its gleaming floors and elegant halls, stood as a monument to both triumph and the human cost of achievement. In that silence, he realized that sacrifice is not always visible but always impactful. He paused on the landing, recalling mornings when exhaustion weighed heavier than excitement. The drive to succeed had been relentless, fueled by dreams of financial freedom and legacy, yet often leaving emotional debts unpaid. He thought about conversations missed, laughter unheard, and the subtle regrets that accumulate unnoticed. In business, he had learned that hard work brings results, but without balance, it can erode trust and relationships. Similarly, in life, he recognized that every hour spent chasing money is also an hour not spent nurturing family, love, or personal growth. He reflected on how each sacrifice had taught lessons about patience, resilience, and priorities. The mansion's walls seemed to echo those lessons, reminding him that success is measured not only in wealth but in wisdom and values. He felt a mix of pride and melancholy, aware that the journey was shaped by choices both necessary and costly. And yet, the memory of sacrifice prepared him to face the unexpected. Climbing higher, he recalled sleepless nights reviewing contracts and negotiations, decisions that could make or break his empire. The pressure had been immense, and he often wondered if he had lost more than he gained. He remembered mentors who emphasized that true success involves both achievement and integrity, lessons often learned through personal cost. The mansion's silence allowed him to hear the echoes of those teachings, each step bringing recollections of moments when determination outweighed comfort. He understood that sacrifice is rarely glamorous. It is quiet, demanding, and sometimes invisible to the world. Yet, those choices had built the life he now walked through, a life full of opportunities and hidden challenges. The memories of sacrifice mingled with awareness of the present, reminding him that the unexpected could always emerge, regardless of planning. Every polished surface reflected not just wealth, but the effort and dedication behind it. He felt both prepared and cautious for what lay ahead. A soft breeze through an open window stirred memories of mornings missed with his family, moments that wealth could not reclaim. The fragrance of the air reminded him of birthdays, anniversaries, and quiet evenings that had been forfeited for meetings and deadlines. He thought about how he had promised himself balance, yet ambition often pulled him away. Life, he realized, is a constant negotiation between desire, duty, and the unexpected twists that no fortune can predict. He recalled the lessons learned from mentors, books like Think and Grow Rich, and personal experiences that emphasize the value of integrity alongside success. The mansion, silent and expansive, became a mirror reflecting both his achievements and the emotional debts accrued along the way. He felt gratitude for the journey, tempered by awareness of its cost. Every memory of sacrifice sharpened his understanding of trust, family, and love, and he sensed that these reflections were preparing him for a revelation he could not yet see. As he reached the next landing, he remembered the first time he had turned down a personal request to close a deal that seemed crucial. The guilt, the self-reproach, and the understanding that wealth often demands hard choices weighed heavily on him. Life had taught him that sacrifice is inevitable, but awareness and intention can transform it into growth rather than regret. Each lost moment carried a lesson: empathy, patience, and the importance of listening to both others and oneself. He recognized that trust and relationships require attention, and neglect can create cracks that money alone cannot mend. The mansion, filled with treasures, had once been a fortress of ambition, yet now seemed to whisper reminders of balance and human connection. He felt the weight of responsibility, not just to himself but to the lives intertwined with his own. Each step upward carried him deeper into reflection, while curiosity about the hidden truths in the house grew stronger. In the quiet hallway near the bedrooms, he thought about the sacrifices that were never noticed by anyone but him. The late nights, the skipped meals, the endless planning, all had contributed to success, yet few understood the human cost behind it. He realized that life's lessons are often hidden within these sacrifices, teaching resilience, humility, and foresight. The mansion, with its luxurious emptiness, reflected the duality of achievement: comfort and isolation, success and responsibility. He reflected on personal stories from his mentors, who had warned that wealth without values could erode even the strongest foundations. Every step, every memory, added depth to his understanding of trust, family, and unexpected challenges. The sense of anticipation grew, as if the house itself wanted him to integrate these lessons before the coming revelation. Awareness of sacrifice gave him perspective, strengthening his ability to face what awaited. And in this reflection, he felt both readiness and apprehension. He moved past the main bedroom, recalling times when work had overshadowed love and ambition had eclipsed moments of joy. Memories of neglected anniversaries, hurried goodbyes, and fleeting connections reminded him that wealth does not guarantee happiness. Each recollection brought lessons about prioritization, emotional intelligence, and the hidden costs of success. The mansion's silence provided the space to consider how to better balance personal values with professional drive. He remembered the words of mentors who emphasized integrity over short-term gain, and how small acts of attention and care build lasting trust. Each object in the room seemed to remind him of the invisible sacrifices, lessons embedded in quiet moments, and the importance of awareness. Reflection sharpened his perception of relationships and loyalty. He felt prepared for the next stage of discovery, guided by the lessons of the past. And yet, the mansion hinted that surprises still lingered, waiting to emerge. At the final steps toward the upper floor, he thought about the sacrifices that had been acknowledged and those silently endured. Family gatherings missed, health compromised, and trust tested. All were part of a life built on ambition. He realized that each sacrifice was a teacher, providing lessons about patience, clarity, and the hidden value of relationships. The mansion, in its quiet grandeur, reflected these lessons, reminding him that success without reflection can leave one unprepared for unforeseen truths. He felt a mixture of pride and humility, aware that wealth had brought freedom but also challenges. The anticipation of what lay ahead was tempered by these reflections, preparing him to face truths about trust, betrayal, and love. Each step carried weight, the mansion echoing both history and expectation. Awareness of past sacrifices created readiness for revelation. Standing finally near the top landing, he took a moment to let the memories settle. Every sacrifice, every lost moment, every choice weighed on him, shaping perspective and resilience. The mansion had been both a reward and a reminder of what it took to achieve. He thought about lessons from mentors, books like The Richest Man in Babylon, and personal experience, realizing that sacrifice often uncovers values, trust, and the truth hidden beneath routine life. Wealth, comfort, and luxury could not replace the emotional intelligence developed through these moments. Each memory strengthened his insight into relationships, loyalty, and the unexpected. He understood that discovery was imminent, and the mansion, silent but observant, was guiding him. And as he paused, ready to step forward, the anticipation for what was hidden built quietly, insisting that the next moment would change everything. He approached the door that was usually locked, feeling a mixture of curiosity and unease. The quiet of the mansion made each creak of the floorboards echo like a warning. As he pushed it open, a small but unusual sight caught his attention. A glass, half full, sitting on the table. It was out of place, as if someone had been there, and yet no one was supposed to be. He paused, realizing that wealth and security offer comfort, but cannot shield against the unexpected. This moment reminded him that vigilance is always necessary, no matter how familiar the surroundings. He took a deep breath, ready to explore what secrets the room might reveal. The air inside was still, carrying the faint scent of something unfamiliar, hinting at recent presence. Objects that had always been perfectly aligned now seemed slightly disturbed, small signs of intrusion he could not ignore. He remembered how in business, unnoticed details often foreshadowed major surprises, and the same principle applied to life at home. Trust, he realized, is not just about words, it's built on observation and intuition. Each misaligned object became a clue, a breadcrumb leading him closer to understanding what had been hidden. The mansion had taught him that appearances can deceive, and truth often waits quietly for those willing to notice. He stepped further in, attentive and cautious, knowing revelation was near. As he examined the table, his mind wandered to how easily assumptions can mislead, even in familiar environments. The glass, simple yet suspicious, symbolized moments in life where small anomalies indicate larger truths. He recalled mentors emphasizing that attention to detail reveals character, loyalty, and hidden intentions. The mansion, full of luxury, had always seemed predictable, yet this tiny disturbance made it feel alive, almost sentient. Every shadow, every minor inconsistency became a lesson in perception and trust. He realized that the path to understanding often starts with noticing the seemingly insignificant. Each detail strengthened his resolve to uncover the truth, no matter how uncomfortable. His eyes moved to the floor, noticing faint footprints that were unfamiliar yet deliberate. They led toward a corner of the room, where the light cast strange patterns across the walls. It reminded him of experiences in both life and business, where small signs often point to hidden realities. Wealth had brought him comfort, but these clues highlighted vulnerabilities money cannot protect against. He felt a mixture of fear and determination, knowing that the answers he sought were close. Observation, patience, and courage were now his tools, As he pieced together the subtle story before him, the mansion seemed to hold its breath, waiting for him to continue uncovering what was concealed. He moved closer to the corner, heart racing with anticipation. The details became more pronounced. A slightly ajar drawer, a faint sound from beyond, shadows that seemed too deliberate to ignore. Every discovery heightened both suspense and awareness, teaching him that life often reveals its lessons through subtlety. He thought about past betrayals, moments when trust was taken for granted, and how attention to small signs could have prevented pain. The mansion, despite its grandeur, was now a place of insight, offering him clarity about relationships, loyalty, and hidden motives. Each observation deepened his understanding of how easily appearances can mislead, preparing him for what was about to unfold. A sudden noise drew his focus to another part of the room, a soft shuffle that made him freeze. The realization that someone had been here, and might still be, hit him sharply. Wealth, power, and security felt irrelevant in the face of uncertainty, proving that even the most controlled environments hold surprises. He reflected on the lessons of patience, observation, and discernment he had learned over the years. Each small clue in this room had been preparing him for a confrontation with reality, testing his ability to notice, interpret, and respond. The mansion's silence amplified the tension, teaching him that awareness is the first step toward uncovering truth. He steadied himself, ready for the next revelation. Finally, he stood at the center of the room, surrounded by evidence that challenged his assumptions. The glass, the footprints, the subtle disarray, all pointed to a presence he had never anticipated. The mansion, once a symbol of achievement and comfort, had transformed into a mirror reflecting vulnerability, trust, and hidden dynamics. He realized that the truths revealed in small spaces often carry greater weight than any overt display of wealth. Each observation reinforced the importance of being vigilant and attentive in both life and relationships. The room, ordinary in appearance, had become extraordinary in its lessons. And as he prepared to uncover what lay just beyond sight, anticipation built, leading him into the next phase of discovery. Standing in the quiet room, the millionaire felt a wave of loneliness wash over him. Despite the mansion's grandeur, the silence reminded him that wealth cannot replace meaningful connections. The walls echoed with memories of missed dinners, unheard laughter, and conversations postponed for work. He thought about family gatherings that had become rare, friends who drifted away, and the subtle isolation that success sometimes brings. Even surrounded by luxury, he realized how fragile human connection can be when neglected. Every creak of the floorboards seemed to underscore the absence of those he truly cared about. And in that moment, he understood that attention and presence are as valuable as any fortune. The solitude pressed against him, revealing the emotional cost of ambition. He reflected on how easy it had been to assume that money could solve problems, when in reality, it only magnified the importance of trust and loyalty. He remembered lessons from mentors about the difference between wealth and fulfillment, and how relationships form the foundation of true success. The mansion, silent and expansive, became a mirror to his own heart, showing what had been overlooked in pursuit of achievement. He thought about small gestures, calls, shared meals, kind words that often sustain relationships. Loneliness, he realized, is not only about being alone, but about losing touch with what truly matters. Each echo reminded him that love and attention cannot be bought, only nurtured. As he moved through the hallways, memories of past companionship mingled with the stillness of the present. The laughter of his children in years past, the smiles of friends during celebrations, all contrasted sharply with the quiet now. He considered how success sometimes isolates those who achieve it, creating walls invisible to others. The mansion, full of objects and treasures, offered little comfort against emotional emptiness. He thought about the lessons life had taught him regarding empathy, presence, and the value of human connection. Even small moments of attention can prevent isolation and reinforce bonds. The subtle reminders in the mansion's silence made him more alert, preparing him for what was still hidden. Passing a long corridor, he noticed how the sunlight failed to warm the spaces it touched, leaving shadows that seemed almost symbolic of missed opportunities for connection. He reflected on how easily time slips away and how wealth cannot reclaim moments lost to work and ambition. Relationships require intention, he realized, and neglect can silently erode even the strongest bonds. The echoes around him whispered truths about loyalty, love, and attention that money alone could never secure. He remembered advice from mentors about balancing success with care for family and friends. The mansion's quiet reinforced the lesson. Emptiness cannot be filled by riches, only by meaningful presence. And as he continued walking, the anticipation of uncovering more truths about trust and hidden dynamics grew stronger. He paused near the staircase, noticing how the emptiness of the rooms contrasted with memories of shared laughter. The echoes of solitude carried lessons about attention, awareness, and emotional intelligence. He thought about situations where he had assumed loyalty or understanding, only to discover that distance and neglect can weaken bonds over time. The mansion, a symbol of triumph, now felt like a classroom teaching him about the human heart. Even the most lavish surroundings cannot substitute for trust and genuine care. Every sound, or lack thereof, reminded him that presence is a gift often overlooked. He felt a mixture of regret and clarity, understanding that awareness of loneliness is the first step toward meaningful connection. Moving further, he considered how many people live surrounded by wealth but starve emotionally. He remembered colleagues, friends, and family members whose loyalty he took for granted, learning the hard way that relationships require consistent investment. The mansion, though magnificent, highlighted the contrast between material abundance and emotional fulfillment. He realized that being alone in a house of treasures can be more unsettling than facing challenges with someone trustworthy. Each step echoed lessons about empathy, attention, and the subtle cues that reveal trust or its absence. The loneliness was not just physical but emotional, showing that hidden truths often emerge when one is forced to reflect. The mansion, silent yet instructive, guided him deeper into awareness. Finally, he reached a quiet sitting area, letting the echoes settle around him. The weight of solitude brought both sadness and insight, revealing the consequences of choices made in pursuit of wealth. He recognized that money could buy comfort, luxury, and security, but never the genuine connection of a trusting relationship. The mansion, with all its opulence, had become a teacher, showing that emotional awareness is as vital as business acumen. Each echo reminded him to observe, listen, and nurture the relationships that truly matter. The lessons of loneliness sharpened his senses, preparing him for the next discovery. And with that understanding, he moved forward, ready to face what was hidden in the shadows ahead. As he moved deeper into the mansion, small details began to unsettle him. Misplaced items, a subtle shift in familiar arrangements, hinted that someone had been there without his knowledge. It reminded him that trust, once broken, leaves traces that cannot be hidden completely. He thought about how, in business, even minor oversights can expose hidden motives or deception. The mansion, usually a sanctuary, now felt like a maze of subtle warnings. Every object seemed to whisper a question. Who can you trust? His heart raced as the realization grew. Loyalty, even in familiar spaces, can be fragile. He noticed a photograph slightly askew on a wall, a subtle detail, yet enough to spark suspicion. The tiny misalignment reminded him how deception often hides in plain sight, waiting for observant eyes. He recalled lessons from mentors. The smallest inconsistency often reveals the largest truth. Wealth and power could not shield him from betrayal, nor could the elegance of his surroundings mask human motives. He felt a twinge of unease, realizing that vigilance is crucial not only in business but in life and family. Every clue heightened curiosity and caution, pulling him closer to confronting the unknown. The mansion, silent and grand, held its secrets patiently, almost challenging him to uncover them. A slight creak echoed from above, drawing his attention to the master bedroom hallway. Footsteps? Or just the house settling? The ambiguity made him reflect on times he had overlooked early signs of betrayal in business and relationships. He remembered colleagues and partners whose actions had been hidden behind smiles and polite words. Wealth might impress outsiders, but it cannot prevent someone close from deceiving. Each misplaced item, each quiet sound, became a lesson in observation, patience, and discernment. He understood that the house was now teaching him more about human nature than any boardroom or meeting ever could. Awareness was his only tool, and he was sharpening it carefully. He reached the study and noticed papers slightly shifted on the desk. Financial documents, personal notes, even letters from family appeared subtly altered. His mind raced, connecting the dots of what could have been done behind his back. Betrayal, he realized, often hides in everyday moments, unnoticed until curiosity or intuition reveals it. The mansion, full of reminders of his success, now offered cautionary signals about loyalty and trust. Even wealth, power, and status could not prevent deception from slipping through unnoticed gaps. He paused, reflecting on how careful attention and self-awareness are essential to navigating both fortune and relationships. A faint sound from the kitchen drew him further, the echo of movement barely perceptible yet undeniable. He felt a shiver of anticipation mixed with understanding. When trust is questioned, every detail matters. The misplaced vase on the counter, the slightly open cabinet, even the way shadows fell across the floor, all whispered that something was off. He recalled lessons from mentors and business experiences where subtle signs indicated larger truths. Observing carefully, he realized, is often more important than acting hastily. Wealth cannot compensate for neglecting the small signals that reveal character. Each step heightened awareness, preparing him for the revelation that waited. He paused near the living room, noticing a faint mark on the polished table, something that shouldn't have been there. It was subtle, almost dismissible, but his instincts refused to ignore it. Trust, he reflected, is both delicate and powerful, capable of being built or broken in silence. The mansion, a fortress of luxury, had become a classroom in human behavior. Each indication of betrayal taught him patience, critical thinking, and emotional awareness. Even the most trusted relationships can harbor secrets, waiting for the observant to notice. And as he moved forward, the tension grew, leading him toward the ultimate discovery. Finally, standing near the hallway to the bedrooms, he felt the weight of suspicion fully settle in. The subtle signs, the shifted objects, the faint sounds, the unusual placement of personal items built a story that was almost impossible to ignore. Wealth, comfort, and power had offered no protection against deception. He thought about personal experiences where early warning signs had been overlooked, costing trust and relationships dearly. The mansion, silent yet expressive, held the answers he sought, teaching him to balance vigilance with patience. Each clue brought clarity, yet also deepened the mystery of what was hidden. And with a mix of dread and determination, he prepared to confront the truths waiting just ahead. He paused in the hallway, letting the subtle signs of betrayal sink in, reflecting on the fragile nature of trust. Wealth and power had often masked vulnerabilities, but now he saw clearly how easily confidence could be broken. Relationships, he realized, are like glass. Delicate, transparent, and capable of shattering if mishandled. He thought about his wife, family, and closest colleagues, questioning who truly stood by him. Every misplaced item and faint sound reminded him that loyalty is earned, not assumed. The mansion, grand and silent, seemed to whisper lessons about honesty, values, and the importance of awareness. Trust, he knew, requires vigilance, patience, and understanding, especially when deception lurks nearby. As he moved through the familiar corridors, he recalled past experiences where trust had been tested and sometimes betrayed. He thought about business partners who smiled while hiding motives, friends who vanished in difficult times, and moments when honesty was compromised. Each reflection reinforced the lesson that perception and observation are critical. Even in spaces that feel secure, small anomalies can reveal hidden truths about people and relationships. He realized that his awareness of these subtle signals was not just about wealth but about preserving meaningful connections. The mansion, with its silence, amplified his introspection, turning each room into a mirror for reflection. Awareness became his guide, sharpening judgment and understanding. Passing by the library, he remembered conversations with mentors about loyalty, honesty, and integrity. They had warned that success attracts admiration but also hidden envy and deception. The quiet of the mansion highlighted the contrast between external appearances and internal realities. He reflected on how many times he had assumed trust without confirmation, only to face the consequences later. Each object, each shadow, now seemed a test of his attention and discernment. He recognized that vigilance is not paranoia but a form of respect for truth and relationships. And with each step, he felt more attuned to the subtleties that could protect him from further betrayal. In the grand sitting room, he contemplated the value of trust in personal and professional life. Wealth can provide comfort, but it cannot replace the clarity that comes from observing actions over words. He thought about lessons from real-life mentors, books like The Richest Man in Babylon, and personal experiences emphasizing that integrity is priceless. Each misplaced item he had noticed earlier now became a symbol of the broader principle. Appearances can deceive, but careful attention reveals reality. The mansion's silence was both unsettling and enlightening, reminding him that understanding human nature requires patience and awareness. Trust, he realized, is an ongoing process, cultivated daily, and easily lost if neglected. His reflection prepared him for confronting truths that went beyond material wealth. He wandered past the family portraits, noticing subtle details he had never seen before. Expressions, postures, moments frozen in time. They reminded him that history often reveals patterns, and paying attention to small cues can prevent surprises. Relationships, like these captured moments, require observation, care, and reflection to remain strong. The mansion, though filled with riches, now felt like a tutor, guiding him through lessons about human behavior and loyalty. He understood that even the most familiar environments can hide truths waiting to be discovered. Observing, reflecting, and connecting the dots became essential tools for navigating both family and business. And as he continued, he felt a growing readiness to face what lay hidden ahead. Near the staircase, he thought about the delicate balance between suspicion and trust. Overconfidence can blind people to warning signs, but excessive doubt can harm relationships unnecessarily. He reflected on how life often tests this balance, especially when stakes are high and emotions are involved. The mansion's quietude offered space to process these lessons, revealing insights about loyalty, honesty, and values. He considered how small gestures, honest conversations, and attentive observation could fortify bonds against deception. Each reflection reinforced that trust is both fragile and invaluable, requiring care, vigilance, and understanding. And with this heightened awareness, he moved toward the moments that would reveal deeper truths. Finally, standing near the main hallway, he felt the weight of all the reflections converge. Trust, loyalty, and honesty emerged as guiding principles, more significant than any fortune or possession. The mansion, silent and expansive, had taught him that observing details and valuing human connections are essential for navigating both life and relationships. Every echo, misplaced item, and shadow was now a teacher, offering insight into the hidden dynamics around him. He realized that these lessons would shape how he faced the coming revelations, preparing him mentally and emotionally. Awareness and reflection had strengthened his capacity to discern truth from deception. And as he advanced further into the mansion, the anticipation of the hidden conversation ahead built quietly, guiding him forward. From the far end of the mansion, he heard faint voices, barely audible but unmistakable. The tone carried secrecy, urgency, and a rhythm that made his chest tighten. Each syllable sounded like a clue, a piece of a puzzle hidden from him until now. He realized that wealth and power could never shield him from the subtleties of human behavior. The mansion, grand and imposing, seemed to shrink as the reality of the hidden conversation unfolded. He paused, listening intently, understanding that the truth often comes in whispers before it erupts into revelation. Every word, though muffled, carried weight, stirring emotions he had tried to suppress. His mind raced as he tried to identify the voices, recalling relationships, recent interactions, and subtle hints from the past weeks. Who could be here, speaking in hushed tones, behind his back? Betrayal, he knew, often starts small. In moments like these, hidden from view yet powerful in impact. He thought about lessons from mentors. The tiniest conversations can foreshadow major consequences. The mansion, usually a place of control, now felt like a stage for mystery and suspense. He felt a mix of fear, curiosity, and determination, knowing that uncovering the truth would change everything. Each phrase he overheard seemed to deepen the puzzle, compelling him to move closer. He crept down the corridor, careful not to alert anyone to his presence, absorbing every inflection, every pause. The conversation hinted at secrets that had been carefully concealed, moments of deception that had gone unnoticed until now. He reflected on how trust can be fragile, and how the most surprising revelations often come from the most familiar sources. The mansion, silent in its luxury, had become a witness to hidden dynamics, exposing the vulnerability behind appearances. Each word prompted him to piece together a narrative, to connect the dots of loyalty, love, and deception. He felt the weight of awareness pressing down, sharpening his focus and insight. And as he listened, anticipation and dread intertwined, building suspense with every passing second. Subtle cues, tone changes, hesitations, even laughter, revealed more than words alone could convey. He noticed how emotions, when hidden behind measured speech, could still be detected by careful observation. The mansion's quiet amplified each sound, making it impossible to ignore the gravity of the conversation. He thought about personal experiences where missed signals had led to disappointment, realizing that intuition is as vital as intellect. Wealth, he reflected, could not prevent the complexities of human behavior from unfolding. He felt a mixture of anger, sorrow, and curiosity, each feeling a lesson in emotional awareness. And with each step closer, he prepared to confront the reality that had been whispered but never addressed. The voices seemed to pause, then continue, discussing matters that touched on loyalty, trust, and hidden truths. Every sentence carried implications for relationships he valued deeply. He considered how betrayal often emerges in quiet, seemingly inconsequential moments, testing perception and attention. The mansion, full of symbols of achievement, now served as a classroom, revealing truths about character and integrity. He realized that understanding the nuances of behavior requires patience, observation, and reflection. Each word he overheard added layers to the story, deepening his awareness and shaping his response. And as the conversation unfolded, suspense grew, leading him toward a revelation that would challenge his assumptions. He noticed subtle shifts in the conversation, hints of surprise, perhaps even fear, from the speakers. The mansion seemed to hold its breath, as if aware that a moment of truth was approaching. He recalled lessons from mentors about the importance of reading between the lines, observing subtleties, and trusting instincts. Wealth could not teach him this. Only attentive observation and reflection could reveal the underlying reality. He felt a mix of caution and anticipation, realizing that patience was critical before confronting what lay ahead. Every tone, pause, and word became a key to unlocking the mystery. And as he moved closer, the tension reached a level that made the next moment unavoidable. Finally, he positioned himself just outside the room, every sense heightened, every detail recorded in his mind. The voices carried emotions he could almost touch: fear, deception, and hidden intentions. The mansion, once a backdrop of comfort and control, now highlighted vulnerability, honesty, and the delicate balance of trust. He thought about lessons from life and business where paying attention to hidden conversations had changed outcomes dramatically. Each fragment of sound sharpened his understanding, preparing him mentally for the confrontation that was inevitable. He realized that the truth, no matter how hidden, cannot remain concealed forever. And with steady breath, he reached for the door, ready to face what had been secretly unfolding. Standing outside the door, he felt every heartbeat echo through the mansion. The voices from inside had stopped for a moment, leaving a silence thicker than any he had experienced. Anticipation and dread collided, making him question whether he was ready for what he might discover. He thought about how moments like this, though brief, define the path ahead and reveal the strength of character. The mansion, usually comforting, now felt like a stage, spotlighting the human emotions hidden behind wealth and luxury. He knew that opening this door would change everything, yet curiosity pulled him forward. Each step toward the threshold seemed to stretch time, heightening every sensation, every thought, every doubt. He steadied his breathing, recalling lessons about courage, patience, and facing uncomfortable truths. Wealth and power had never prepared him for this kind of vulnerability. He realized that suspense is as much about mental readiness as it is about external circumstances. The mansion's quiet amplified the tension, making every creak and shadow seem loaded with meaning. He remembered times in business and life when confronting hidden realities had led to unexpected growth and clarity. Trust, he reflected, is not just given, it must be tested, observed, and understood. And as his hand hovered over the doorknob, he felt the weight of revelation pressing down, shaping his resolve. A faint shift inside the room hinted that someone had sensed his presence. The subtle sound of movement made his pulse quicken, but he remained calm, focused on discerning the truth. Every instinct screamed that the next moment would uncover secrets long hidden, challenging assumptions he had held about family, loyalty, and trust. The mansion, silent yet watchful, seemed to guide him, teaching that awareness and preparation are critical in moments of uncertainty. He considered how emotions can amplify suspense, making even familiar spaces feel foreign and unpredictable. Every second stretched, creating a rhythm of tension that demanded patience and focus. And as he listened, the anticipation built toward a revelation that could not be avoided. He recalled the subtle clues scattered throughout the mansion. Misplaced items, quiet sounds, and small inconsistencies. Each had led him here, to this very moment outside the door, where the culmination of suspicion, observation, and reflection would collide. The mansion, full of grandeur, now served as a teacher in patience, perception, and emotional acuity. He felt a mix of fear, anticipation, and determination, understanding that confronting the unknown is a test of both courage and wisdom. The suspense was almost tangible, wrapping around him like the walls themselves, making every breath and heartbeat significant. He knew the next action would reveal truths that money, power, or status could never protect him from. Each second held lessons about vigilance and human nature. As he adjusted his stance, he thought about the importance of timing, observation, and mental clarity in moments like this. Acting too quickly could lead to misinterpretation, but hesitation could allow the hidden reality to shift further. He considered lessons from mentors and past experiences where patience had uncovered insights others missed. The mansion's silence reinforced the gravity of the moment, highlighting that suspense is both a test and an opportunity for growth. Trust and truth hung in the balance, delicate as glass, waiting to be revealed. Every sound, shadow, and heartbeat added layers to the anticipation, sharpening his senses. And as he placed his hand firmly on the doorknob, the climax felt inevitable. The moment stretched, heavy and electric, as he prepared to step into the unknown. He reflected on how life often presents suspense in ordinary settings, teaching lessons about vigilance, courage, and discernment. The mansion, once a place of routine and comfort, had transformed into a crucible of awareness, where every detail mattered. He thought about how trust, betrayal, and hidden truths are intertwined, and how observing subtle signals can prevent regret. The silence inside the room seemed to hold its breath, acknowledging that revelation was imminent. He felt the weight of responsibility to face the truth, whatever it might be, with clarity and composure. And as he turned the knob, the anticipation reached its peak, signaling the verge of discovery. Every nerve in his body tensed as the door creaked open, the mansion echoing the suspense of the moment. He felt a mixture of dread and determination, knowing that the truth, once revealed, could change relationships, emotions, and perspectives forever. The mansion, silent witness to countless decisions and events, now framed a moment where human nature and hidden realities would collide. He considered the lessons learned from wealth, experience, and observation, realizing that preparation and awareness make suspense not just bearable but instructive. Each heartbeat reinforced the gravity of the moment, highlighting the importance of patience, insight, and emotional resilience. And with the threshold crossed, he stepped into the room, ready to confront what had been carefully hidden. He stepped inside, and the sight that met him froze his breath. Not wealth, not luxury, but a scene that exposed the raw truth of betrayal and hidden intentions. Every detail in the room screamed deception, making it impossible to ignore the consequences of unspoken actions. His heart pounded as he realized that the security he had assumed in relationships and loyalty was a fragile illusion. The mansion, grand yet silent, seemed to amplify the weight of revelation, teaching him that appearances can deceive even the most experienced eyes. He felt the sting of emotions, shock, sorrow, and a quiet understanding of what had been carefully concealed. This moment was not just a surprise. It was a turning point in how he would perceive trust forever. The people he trusted most stood there, caught in a web of secrets they thought hidden. Faces he had seen every day now looked unfamiliar, carrying expressions of guilt, fear, and defensiveness. The millionaire, usually composed, felt vulnerability he had long ignored in pursuit of wealth. He realized that no fortune could insulate him from the realities of human nature. The mansion, filled with memories of triumph, now held the weight of lessons about honesty, loyalty, and the fragility of trust. Each glance, each gesture, revealed layers of truth that words alone could not convey. And as he observed, he understood that confronting deception is as much about insight as it is about courage. His mind raced, connecting the dots of subtle signs he had noticed. Misplaced items, quiet sounds, hushed tones. Each clue now formed a story of hidden motivations, secret alliances, and moments of betrayal he had previously overlooked. The mansion, silent witness to his success and failures, offered clarity in the chaos, teaching him that awareness is an invaluable asset. He felt a wave of emotions, anger tempered by reflection, disappointment softened by understanding, and a strange sense of liberation. The truth, harsh and undeniable, forced him to reevaluate relationships and reassess who truly deserved his trust. He realized that wealth might offer comfort, but it cannot substitute for discernment or emotional intelligence. And as the scene unfolded before him, he braced for the lessons embedded in the revelation. He noticed subtle interactions, gestures betraying tension, and conversations left unfinished. Each movement revealed more than spoken words, teaching him that human behavior often communicates what words cannot. The mansion, elegant and imposing, now acted as a magnifier for truth, turning every shadow into a signal, every silence into a message. He reflected on personal experiences where he had ignored early signs, realizing that careful observation is the bridge between suspicion and understanding. The millionaire felt a mixture of shock and clarity, recognizing that revelation, though painful, is often necessary for growth. Trust, he realized, is not only about belief but about perception, patience, and courage. And with this understanding, he prepared to respond with wisdom rather than impulsive emotion. The room seemed to hold its breath, every object and person a participant in the unfolding drama. He observed carefully, noting the dynamics, expressions, and emotions that had previously gone unnoticed. The mansion, filled with echoes of laughter, business victories, and family moments, now offered lessons in authenticity, loyalty, and honesty. He understood that revelation, though momentary, could redefine relationships permanently. The millionaire reflected on how every life experience, from business negotiations to family interactions, had prepared him for this confrontation. Awareness, insight, and emotional intelligence became tools far more powerful than money or status. And as he faced the truth, he recognized the opportunity to rebuild relationships on a foundation of clarity and understanding. The impact of the reveal hit with intensity, yet clarity emerged through the shock. Hidden motives, deceptions, and betrayals were no longer ambiguous. They were visible, undeniable, and instructive. The mansion, silent and grand, became a backdrop for lessons about human nature, emphasizing that wealth can only illuminate opportunities, not prevent challenges. He felt the weight of emotions, surprise, disappointment, and the faint relief of finally knowing the truth. Every detail in the room became a teacher, illustrating the importance of vigilance, discernment, and patience. And with each passing moment, he internalized the understanding that facing the unthinkable is necessary to grasp the full scope of trust and loyalty. Finally, as the initial shock subsided, he allowed himself to absorb the reality fully. The mansion, once a symbol of security and achievement, now stood as a witness to a profound lesson. True wealth lies in understanding, trust, and the integrity of human connections. He reflected on the events leading to this moment, realizing that every subtle sign, every observation, and every moment of reflection had prepared him for this revelation. The emotions swirled, anger softened by comprehension, betrayal tempered by insight, and surprise transformed into clarity. He understood that this moment, though painful, was a catalyst for personal growth and a deeper appreciation of loyalty and honesty. And as he took a breath, he prepared for the next steps, knowing that the mansion had given him more than a shock. It had given him wisdom. In that moment, the millionaire felt the fragile veil of control and invincibility crumble. Wealth, luxury, and status had once provided a sense of security, but now they seemed powerless against the raw truth. The mansion, filled with symbols of success, echoed with lessons about human nature and the limits of material protection. He realized that illusions about people, loyalty, and relationships had blinded him, making him vulnerable despite his fortune. Every object around him, pristine furniture, sparkling chandeliers, expansive hallways, suddenly felt like reminders of what could not shield him from reality. The shock was sobering, but clarity began to emerge from the disarray. And in that collapse, he sensed a rare opportunity to see truth as it really was. He thought about the countless moments he had trusted without question, believing appearances told the whole story. Friends, family, even colleagues had seemed reliable, yet reality had a way of exposing hidden motives. The mansion's silence magnified the weight of these reflections, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths. He understood that control is an illusion when human emotions and intentions are unpredictable. This moment, painful as it was, offered a profound insight. Wealth can't replace discernment or emotional intelligence. He felt a mixture of regret and relief, recognizing that the collapse of illusions is both disorienting and enlightening. Each second of this realization deepened his understanding of human behavior. The grandeur of the mansion contrasted sharply with the vulnerability he now felt. Success, he realized, had made him complacent, blind to subtle cues and minor inconsistencies. He remembered times when he had overlooked early signs of betrayal, dismissing them as insignificant. The collapse of his assumptions now demanded focus, reflection, and careful evaluation. He understood that recognizing illusions is the first step toward building genuine trust and meaningful relationships. The emotions of shock and disillusionment were tempered by clarity, making him more aware of hidden dynamics in his life. And as he moved through the room, each step reinforced the lesson that wealth is a tool, not a shield. He considered the lessons from his mentors and books he had read, now seeing them in a new light. Lessons about trust, loyalty, and discernment were not abstract. They were vital for navigating life beyond material success. The mansion, once a symbol of invulnerability, had become a classroom for understanding human nature. He reflected on personal experiences, realizing that the greatest challenges often reveal the most essential truths. The collapse of illusions was uncomfortable, yet it provided perspective on who truly valued honesty and integrity. Each observation became a guide for future decisions, offering insight into relationships that were worth nurturing. And as clarity replaced shock, he prepared mentally for the next steps. Subtle signs he had noticed over time now made sense. Misplaced items, quiet movements, hushed voices. Each detail had contributed to a story he had been blind to until now. The mansion, silent yet observant, taught him that careful attention and patience are crucial when navigating trust. He realized that deception is often hidden in the small things, waiting for awareness to uncover it. The collapse of illusions forced him to differentiate between genuine loyalty and superficial appearances. Each lesson, though hard-earned, strengthened his capacity to see truth more clearly. And as he continued through the mansion, he carried both the weight and the wisdom of these revelations. He felt the contrast between past confidence and present vulnerability sharply. Wealth had offered comfort, but it had not prepared him for emotional realities that could shake his perception of life. The mansion's elegance now highlighted how little material possessions could protect against deception or misunderstanding. He reflected on how illusions, once shattered, can bring both pain and profound clarity. The emotions were complex, a mix of sorrow, enlightenment, and cautious hope for the relationships that remained authentic. Every space in the mansion seemed to whisper lessons about integrity, trust, and the value of observation. And with each breath, he absorbed the depth of understanding that comes when illusions finally fall away. The silence around him became almost a teacher, emphasizing the importance of awareness and reflection. He realized that the collapse of illusions is not merely about disappointment. It is a turning point for growth and self-understanding. The mansion, filled with wealth, now reminded him that the real treasures are insight, discernment, and human connection. He thought about steps to rebuild trust, setting boundaries, and nurturing relationships that prove genuine. The lesson was clear. Money and power cannot replace the clarity that comes from observing, learning, and acting with wisdom. Each realization made him more prepared for the revelations yet to come. And as he gathered his composure, he sensed the mansion guiding him toward the next confrontation. Finally, the millionaire understood that this collapse was a pivotal moment, stripping away illusions and exposing reality in its raw form. The mansion, once a fortress of success, now reflected the fragility of assumptions and the power of truth. He felt the emotional weight of betrayal, the sting of misjudgment, and the unexpected clarity of insight. The lessons of vigilance, discernment, and emotional intelligence were now undeniable, pressing him to rethink relationships and values. He recognized that facing uncomfortable truths is essential for personal growth and understanding human nature. Each reflection prepared him for the coming confrontation, where honesty and loyalty would be tested directly. And as he took a deep breath, he readied himself to face what awaited him beyond the next door. He stepped forward, finally ready to face the reality that had been quietly unfolding behind closed doors. The room, once a backdrop of subtle hints and whispers, now demanded clarity and honesty. His gaze met those who had hidden truths from him, and in that moment, the weight of confrontation pressed down. He understood that asking the right questions requires both courage and precision, seeking not just answers but authenticity. The mansion, silent and vast, amplified the gravity of the moment, making every word and gesture significant. Trust, he realized, is tested in moments like these, when the truth cannot be ignored or delayed. Each breath he took prepared him to face revelations that could reshape relationships forever. He began by addressing the smallest details, the overlooked moments that had hinted at deception. Every question was deliberate, designed to uncover motivations, intentions, and hidden truths. The millionaire's voice carried calm authority, yet it held an edge of vulnerability that demanded attention. The mansion, filled with luxury and history, seemed to echo the importance of transparency, reinforcing that wealth cannot shield one from human complexity. He reflected on lessons from personal experiences and mentors, recognizing that confronting reality requires both empathy and firmness. Each answer revealed layers of understanding, guiding him through the emotional maze of loyalty, trust, and betrayal. And as the dialogue unfolded, he noticed subtle shifts in expressions, signals that hinted at honesty or lingering deceit. As he pressed deeper, the truth became harder to avoid, and the atmosphere thickened with tension. The people before him, once confident in secrecy, now faced the weight of exposure and accountability. The millionaire observed carefully, noting not just words but body language, tone, and hesitation. Wealth and power had provided comfort, but they offered no defense against human imperfection or moral complexity. Each revelation brought a mix of emotions: disappointment, relief, and insight, forcing him to evaluate the depth of relationships in his life. The mansion, with its history and grandeur, became a silent witness to this emotional confrontation, emphasizing lessons about integrity and discernment. And as clarity emerged, he prepared to decide what deserved forgiveness and what required boundaries. He reflected on the lessons of patience and perception, realizing that confrontation is as much about listening as speaking. True understanding comes from absorbing nuance, noticing patterns, and interpreting honesty beyond words alone. The mansion, filled with objects of achievement, contrasted sharply with the simplicity and rawness of human emotions in that room. Every gesture, every pause, revealed insights into loyalty, values, and hidden motivations. He considered how these lessons could be applied not just here but in every relationship, business decision, and personal choice. Trust, he knew, is rebuilt slowly and intentionally, starting with awareness and courage. And with every question answered, he felt the mansion and the moment guiding him toward deeper understanding. The confrontation revealed truths that had been concealed, some expected, others astonishing. He saw faces reflect guilt, relief, or defiance, each reaction a lesson in human psychology. The mansion, quiet and grand, seemed to underscore the importance of transparency and accountability. He realized that understanding these dynamics would not only protect him but also strengthen the relationships that were worth preserving. Each answer he received provided clarity, revealing who valued honesty, loyalty, and integrity above comfort or convenience. The millionaire felt a blend of emotions: shock softened by insight, betrayal tempered by discernment, and surprise replaced with comprehension. And as the conversation drew on, he knew the climax of revelation had passed, leaving lessons etched into memory. Through the dialogue, he noticed patterns and connections that had been invisible before, showing how deception can weave subtly through everyday life. The mansion, full of symbols of success, now served as a classroom in human behavior, emphasizing observation and reflection. He reflected on personal experiences where early signs had been ignored, understanding the cost of overlooking subtle truths. Trust, he recognized, is both delicate and invaluable, requiring attention, courage, and emotional intelligence to maintain. Every moment of confrontation reinforced the lesson that facing reality directly, however uncomfortable, leads to clarity and growth. The millionaire internalized these truths, feeling more prepared for decisions that could redefine relationships and loyalty. And as the room settled, he realized the power of truth had reshaped his understanding forever. Finally, the confrontation reached its natural pause, leaving emotions raw but insight clear. He saw the value of direct engagement, of addressing hidden realities rather than avoiding them. The mansion, once a symbol of control, now reflected the lessons of human complexity, trust, and the consequences of deception. He considered the relationships worth nurturing, the boundaries necessary for protection, and the courage required to maintain integrity. Each revelation had taught him that awareness, patience, and careful observation are more valuable than wealth alone. And as he prepared to move forward, he felt empowered by clarity, knowing that this confrontation had transformed both his understanding and his approach to trust, loyalty, and human connection. After the confrontation, he stepped back to absorb the full scope of what had happened. The mansion, once merely a home, now felt like a mirror reflecting the truth about relationships, loyalty, and hidden intentions. He realized that pain and revelation often precede clarity, and that understanding emerges strongest after the storm. Every interaction he had just witnessed revealed who truly cared and who acted out of self-interest. The millionaire understood that life, like business, often tests not just resources but character. With each passing moment, he felt a shift in perspective, appreciating the value of honesty and discernment over comfort or pretense. And as he walked through the mansion, he began to see that this turning point was not an end but a beginning. he reflected on how often he had measured loyalty by appearances or convenience, overlooking subtle cues that spoke louder than words. The mansion, echoing with history, became a classroom for insight and emotional intelligence. He realized that recognizing who truly supports you requires patience, observation, and a willingness to confront discomfort. Each revelation strengthened his understanding of human behavior and the importance of aligning trust with values. He thought about how many people operate under illusions, unaware that truth will eventually surface. The millionaire felt a deep sense of clarity, knowing that those who remained loyal were now revealed in unmistakable ways. And this understanding set the stage for intentional choices moving forward. Subtle moments of honesty and courage from others now stood out vividly, showing him the real pillars of his life. The mansion, filled with grandeur, contrasted sharply with the raw, unfiltered truths unfolding within. He recognized that sometimes wealth and status obscure human motives, making awareness a crucial tool. Lessons from past experiences, mentors, and books he had read now converged, guiding him toward wiser decisions. He realized that adversity, confrontation, and revelation often catalyze the most profound growth. Every interaction, gesture, and expression had taught him to value insight over comfort and integrity over appearances. And as he absorbed this, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and direction. He contemplated the importance of forgiveness, boundaries, and discernment, knowing that the turning point was a chance to reshape relationships wisely. The mansion, silent and vast, seemed to reinforce that clarity comes from observation and reflection, not impulsive reaction. He reflected on how human behavior, when observed closely, reveals loyalty, love, and intentions more reliably than words. Each realization strengthened his emotional intelligence, preparing him to respond rather than react, to nurture truth over pretense. He considered how these lessons could apply in business, family, and friendships, helping him identify who was truly aligned with his values. And as he moved through the mansion, the lessons embedded themselves deeply in his mind, guiding his next actions. The millionaire recognized that turning points are rarely comfortable, but they are transformative. The collapse of illusions, the confrontation, and the clarity that followed had revealed a new path forward. He understood that pain often precedes growth, and that observing and processing human behavior is a lifelong skill. The mansion, once just a setting of luxury, had become a vessel for understanding truth, trust, and the value of integrity. He felt a mixture of gratitude and resolve, appreciating those who remained genuine while noting those whose loyalty had faltered. Every step reinforced the lesson that wisdom often emerges from unexpected revelations. And as he walked through familiar halls, he felt that his perspective on relationships, trust, and life had fundamentally shifted. He thought about how clarity often arrives slowly, after reflection and emotional processing. The mansion, quiet and expansive, provided a backdrop for understanding the depth of human connections. He recognized the difference between those who act out of self-interest and those whose loyalty is steadfast. Every subtle gesture, every candid expression, had contributed to this turning point, showing him who was worthy of trust. The millionaire understood that this was a rare opportunity to rebuild relationships with insight, empathy, and intentionality. The lessons of observation, patience, and discernment were now vividly alive within him. And as he paused in a sunlit hallway, he felt the mansion itself whispering guidance for the journey ahead. Finally, he realized that this turning point marked the beginning of a new approach to life and relationships. The mansion, filled with echoes of past decisions, now symbolized clarity, wisdom, and the power of truth. He understood that challenges, betrayal, and revelation are not punishments but catalysts for growth and insight. Each reflection reinforced the importance of loyalty, honesty, and integrity as measures of true wealth. The millionaire felt a renewed sense of purpose, recognizing that the lessons learned today would shape his choices for years to come. Awareness and discernment had replaced assumptions, and clarity had replaced uncertainty. And as he moved forward, he embraced this turning point as the gateway to meaningful change and deeper connection. He walked through the mansion, now seeing it not as a symbol of wealth, but as a classroom for life's most important lessons. Every room held a story of trust, betrayal, loyalty, and hidden truths. The millionaire understood that money could buy comfort, but it could never replace insight, discernment, or the ability to read people. He reflected on past decisions, realizing that mistakes often carried invaluable lessons if he was willing to learn. Every subtle sign, every unspoken gesture had been a teacher, guiding him toward clarity. He felt a mixture of relief and empowerment, knowing that awareness was now his strongest asset. And as he paused in the sunlit foyer, he recognized that understanding people mattered far more than owning possessions. He considered how often he had taken loyalty for granted, assuming that relationships would endure simply because of shared history or convenience. Now, he saw clearly that honesty, integrity, and emotional intelligence are the foundations of trust. The mansion, once a sanctuary of wealth, had become a mirror reflecting the true values that define meaningful connections. He thought about family, friends, and employees, understanding that evaluating intentions is as critical as managing investments or business risks. Each realization deepened his insight into human nature, showing him how to navigate relationships wisely. The millionaire felt gratitude for the revelation, seeing it as an opportunity to rebuild stronger, more authentic bonds. And as he moved through the halls, he knew these lessons would guide him forever. The shock of betrayal had transformed into clarity, teaching him the value of observation and careful judgment. He understood that illusions can mask intentions, and only through patience and reflection can one discern the truth. The mansion, filled with echoes of laughter, ambition, and history, had silently documented every lesson. He realized that every encounter, both personal and professional, requires awareness, empathy, and courage. Money, he recognized, is temporary, but understanding people, trust, and integrity lasts a lifetime. The millionaire smiled quietly, appreciating the unexpected wisdom gained from the unthinkable revelation. And as he paused by a window, he felt a sense of peace mingled with renewed determination. He reflected on the importance of loyalty and values, recognizing that those who truly care will reveal themselves when tested. The mansion, echoing with lessons, reminded him that the right people enrich life far more than wealth ever could. He thought about practical ways to nurture meaningful connections, listening deeply, observing behavior, and rewarding honesty. Each insight offered guidance not just for relationships, but for business and daily life. He understood that life's greatest surprises often come disguised as challenges, teaching lessons only patience and attention can uncover. The millionaire felt empowered, realizing that every experience, no matter how painful, could become a source of growth. And as he continued through the grand halls, he carried a newfound sense of purpose and discernment. He considered how the experience had reshaped his perspective on power and influence. The mansion, representing years of success, now served as a reminder that true authority comes from understanding and respect, not just wealth. He saw that deception, betrayal, and hidden motives are part of life, but insight and clarity can guide decisions wisely. Every lesson learned emphasized the importance of patience, observation, and emotional intelligence in navigating complex relationships. The millionaire felt gratitude for the unexpected revelation, knowing that the pain had given him a rare opportunity to grow. And as he paused, reflecting on what truly matters, he understood that personal growth and human connection outweigh any material possession. Each insight became a cornerstone for his future choices. He recognized that this lesson extended beyond personal relationships, offering guidance in business, investments, and decision-making. Trust, integrity, and awareness were now his most valuable assets, far surpassing material wealth. The mansion, silent witness to triumphs and mistakes, reinforced the significance of these principles. He realized that life continually tests character, and only those who observe, reflect, and learn can navigate challenges successfully. Every moment of discomfort or surprise had become a lesson in discernment, teaching him to value authenticity above convenience. The millionaire felt a deep sense of accomplishment, not for his fortune, but for the understanding he had gained. And as he moved toward the front door, he carried these lessons as a compass for life. Finally, he understood that the unthinkable revelation had not only exposed deception but had gifted him clarity, wisdom, and insight. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth, now represented experience, reflection, and understanding. He recognized that money and possessions are temporary, but lessons learned from life's challenges endure. Each revelation had strengthened his ability to trust wisely, nurture loyalty, and value honesty. The millionaire felt a profound sense of purpose, knowing that he could now approach relationships and decisions with clarity and confidence. He smiled, realizing that the unthinkable had led to the most invaluable discovery: the truth about people, loyalty, and himself. And as he walked into the sunlight, he embraced this wisdom as the foundation for a life of meaningful connections and conscious choices. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes money solves everything. Subscribe to our channel, Millionaire Breakthrough, for more stories that reveal the truths behind wealth, power, and the human heart. Leave a comment with what you think matters most in life: fortune or trust. We want to hear your story too.